Good morning, Title I coordinators. Welcome to the webinar this morning. I'm so glad you could join us. I'm Tara Rodriguez, Director of the Division of School and Program Improvement at the Kentucky Department of Education. And we have two other presenters with us this morning. If you all want to go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm David Malonti, the Assistant Director in the Division of School and Program Improvement.
And I'm Brenda Considine. I'm the Title I Branch Manager.
Thank you all again for joining us this morning, and we'll go ahead and get started. And I'll share my slides with you that we have this morning so we can start with some logistics. If you have any questions about the information in today's webinar, please send me an email at the address shown on the screen. We'll try to answer your questions during the call, but if that's not possible, we'll be sure to follow up with you afterwards. You should have received a copy of the slides, and the webinar recording and the slides will be posted to the KDE Title I Documents and Resources webpage, and it usually takes a day or so to get those posted. Last month's webinar, we shared some updates and reminders, and Erin Sudduth joined us to present a resource that districts can use as they develop their written allowability procedures. And we also had a guest Title I coordinator on the webinar, Ms. Kendall, who joined us to share about the parent and family engagement strategies and successes that are ongoing in Harrison County. Today, Brenda's going to share some updates and reminders with you. And then David will talk about the release of the 2019 census data. And finally, I'll follow up with a little more information about the CARES Act and ESSER funds monitoring. So Brenda, do you want to take it over with the updates and reminders?
Yes, thanks, Tara. Appreciate it. Most of you have been in GMAP working on your revised allocation. Please remember that you have to have an approved original allocation in GMAP in order to receive your revised allocation so that you can be working on it. The due date for completing those revisions was December 1st. So if you have not completed those, please see if you can get those done shortly. It would really be helpful for us and the consultants to be able to provide you some feedback. When you think about the revised allocations, once they're released, you have to revise that application. And you're going to do that in the same process as you completed the original application. If you have not completed your original, please make sure you do so, because those additional funding or decrease of funding won't be released or taken away until that original is approved. If you are having some issues with getting into GMAP, there's always the GMAP training videos that are on the Title I website that you could reference, and it may give you some tidbits on how to do a revision in GMAP if you need some extra help. Also, it will follow the same workflow as your application did originally, so make sure that you once it's completed, the finance officer would sign off, and then the superintendent, and then it comes back to your consultant. These reallocations will not affect your ability to draw down on your funds. To move on a little bit with the comprehensive district and school improvement plans, you are now in phase 3. And during this phase, as part of your comprehensive improvement planning process, you will be completing a professional development plan, which is for both schools and district. You will also complete a school improvement plan if you're at a school level, and the district must complete a district improvement plan. The executive summary, for both schools and district is due at this time. Also closing the achievement gap diagnostic and the superintendent gap assurances. Now, these diagnostics and plans are due January 1st. Also remember that you had school assurances that were to be completed for your Title I schools, and your needs assessment, which would have been a previous diagnostic that was due earlier by November 1. So if you have any questions or would like to see additional information on the improvement planning process, this is a live link in the slide for improvement planning plans, and you can just click on it and it'll take you to that section of the website. And Tara, that's about all I have for December.
Okay, I do not think we've gotten any questions yet. So we'll go ahead to our next topic, which is the release of the 2019 census data.
Hi, again, my name is David Malonte. We have received from the U.S. Department of Education 2019 census data. That data, as you probably know, lags a couple of years, and we're going to be issuing that for planning purposes for the 21-22 school year. So just wanted to give you some reminders. What we'll issue, we'll go into many of the things I talk about today. We'll give you some explanation of what the census numbers mean, how they're calculated. There's a challenge process included in the document we'll release, and it will talk about the funding formulas for Title I as well. As explained in the document, you're going to be able to use the numbers to calculate an estimate of your 21-22 Title I Part A allocation. So just want to go through a few things about those numbers that we're going to release to you. So those numbers were released on December 8th, and we worked really hard to get them out, to get them prepared and get them ready for release. And they will be coming out through a Monday email shortly. We're going to make sure that they are included through January 4th. I also will ask Brenda to follow up again with a direct email to Title I coordinators when those numbers come out, so everyone has those numbers in front of them. Like I said, those numbers lag a couple years, and the numbers that you're about to get are from the 2019 census data. Those numbers, again, will be used to, in part, calculate your 21-22 allocations for Title I Part A. But in addition, those numbers do affect your Title II allocations and are related to your Title IV Part A calculations, allocations. Let's go to the next slide, Tara. It's important to know that in the numbers, you're going to see estimates of your 5 to 17 population and your 5 to 17 poverty population. You should know that those numbers do not reflect anything that we have submitted to the department. They do not necessarily match ADA. They don't match numbers that you are going to be able to pull out of Infinite Campus. As you see on the screen, those numbers are taken from various data sources, and the Census Bureau actually uses those to calculate an estimate of those populations for every district across the country. So as you see, there are some community surveys, income tax return records, census data. So they use several sources to calculate those estimates. Those estimates are then provided to the U.S. Department of Education for use in program allocation calculations.
David, before we go to the next slide, we did get a question that
Sure.
I think is asking for some clarification about the spreadsheet that was sent, that was attached to an email. And the question says, the spreadsheet attached to this email is from 2018, correct? Is that the newest, or is that for our references to compare?
I'm not sure what email that's referencing.
David, that was the email that I sent this morning, and it was the spreadsheet that we received from USED. It does say 2018 in the title of the file that was sent to us.
Okay, the most up-to-date should be 2019. I don't think I received that, but I'll take a look at it and we can clarify if we need to.
Okay, so thank you for the question. All right, next slide.
So we kind of begin our process by doing some district boundary surveys across the state. Earlier in the year, US Ed issued to us notification that it was time to do that mapping survey. What we do is we go through there to verify district boundaries, so we collect the correct number of students or information on those students. In creating those estimates, we take out any districts that may have closed or may have been absorbed by other districts. So we start the process by doing that mapping survey. The list of LEAs are only LEAs that have geographic boundaries. So those public districts and independent districts that have specific boundaries, all 171 are included in that mapping survey. Okay, let's go to the next slide. You can access the 2019 population and poverty estimates at the link. That link is also included in the document that we're going to issue. We have information in there again about the 5 to 17 populations and the poverty populations in each LEA. Census data at this point is not complete, and that's why we reference tentative numbers at this point. For example, neglected and delinquent and foster children, those counts are not complete at this time. Those numbers are generally complete around the first part of June, and we get a secondary issuance of those numbers, which we go in and verify. So what you receive is going to be, again, tentative, and again can be used to tentatively calculate an estimate of your 21-22 Part A allocation. Yeah, let's go on to the next slide, Tara. Like I said previously, there is a challenge period that we have outlined in the document that we'll release to districts. I think it's very important, and I'll remind everybody to go in and take a look, read through that document very carefully. There's a lot of very important information pertaining to how your allocations and how census data is collected. But the Census Bureau does allow for a challenge to those particular numbers. Generally, I'll say this up front. Generally, the Census Bureau does not make changes to those challenges unless there is some sort of data input error. In those cases, they will make changes, but generally for other reasons, they will not make those changes. I do recommend that you go in and take a look at your numbers very carefully. I'm sure that you want to do that for planning purposes for the next school year. But if you do have concerns, you are welcome to get in contact with the Census Bureau. Let's go to the next slide. Things that you can really take a look at, and you can do some comparison between your own internal data and the data provided by Census Bureau. But again, like I said, the Census Bureau really would act on a couple things: processing and processing of data input, or information related to geographic boundaries. Those are two examples of places where they might make a change if those things were done incorrectly. So again, I do ask that you go in and take a look at those numbers very carefully. You might want to compare to last year's release of data to see how it compares. I did notice this year that there were some fairly large increases in poverty percentages from year to year. Those are areas where you might want to take a look and kind of compare year to year from this data release. Let's go to the next slide. The due date for that challenge is March 8th. Again, that date and accompanying information is included in the data release we're going to push out in the next few days or so. And again, there is contact information. If you do decide to get in touch with the Census Bureau, there's a link that will lead you to information on exactly how to question those census numbers. Tara, let's go to the next. So again, here's the information that will be provided in the document that we release. And those links are in that document and are live as well. Okay, let's go to the next one, Tara.
We do not have any questions yet.
If I can pop in,
Sure.
I did send the wrong document. I'm going to need to put my spectacles on to determine the difference between an 8 and a 9. and they now have the 2019 census data that I've just sent out in an email. My apologies. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda. All right, we'll proceed on and see if we get any more questions as we go along. I'm just going to share some updates and reminders about the CARES Act and ESSER funds monitoring. A lot of this information on this slide was shared at our October webinar, but there are a couple of updates. Just a reminder that KDE is required to monitor districts' CARES Act implementation and use of ESSER funds. So be sure to maintain documentation in case your district is selected for monitoring. As with our other programs, districts will be selected for CARES Act and ESSER funds monitoring based on a risk assessment. Monitoring is anticipated to begin in summer of 2021 with a small pilot of around 3 districts, which would be conducted in spring 2021. So small pilot in the spring, and then the bulk of the monitoring would be in the summer, this upcoming summer. We anticipate notifying the pilot districts in early February. The pilot districts will also be selected based on that same risk assessment. And we'll have some more information to share with you in our January webinar regarding the CARES Act and ESSER funds monitoring. Here is some, again, the reminder about the survey. I'll just share with you a couple of responses that we got. We got a response in November and enjoyed reading that feedback. The respondents shared that they are using Zoom meetings for their parent and family engagement program. And we had a response in October also that provided a little more information about what they're doing. And it said that, quote, "We did have our annual meeting virtually through Zoom so that families felt at ease and safe to participate. In addition, our schools have been utilizing Zoom to stay connected with our families, to offer outside of school hours support to help keep families and students involved during this NTI process when students and families can't be in the building safely." So here are 2 districts utilizing virtual meetings, and I would suspect that there are a lot of others who are also using virtual meetings for their parent-family engagement. If anyone has any tips or best practices for how they're using virtual meetings successfully and would like to share those, either in the newsletter or during as a guest on an upcoming webinar, please contact us. You can contact me or Brenda, David, or your consultant. And we got so much positive feedback about Ms. Kendall joining us as our guest in last month's webinar. If anyone has any strategies or best practices, I know all your colleagues across the state would really appreciate it and love to hear from you. We continue to hear from coordinators that they would like to see examples in practice. And here again is some information that I've shared before with you, some places where you could hear from other districts about their best practices. Again, you see the National ESEA Conference, which will be virtual this year. As I've mentioned before, most of the attendees are school and district staff from across the country. And a lot of the presentations also, if you attend, you'll find that they are from school districts. So this might be a good place to hear from other districts about their work. And of course, as we know, we're getting ready to start the monitoring season, and we'll be on the lookout for some best practices that, with the district's approval, we'll be sharing with you those as well when we see them, and I'm sure we will. I do not think we have gotten any more questions yet. And so our final slide is that these are the dates of our upcoming webinars. I hope you'll be able to join us. But if not, the webinars will be recorded and posted. Thank you for joining us. Brenda and David, do you have anything else that you would like to add before we close?
No, I don't.
I think I'm good.
Okay. Well,
Thanks,
thank you
Tara.
all. Yeah, sure. So thank you. And thank you all so much for joining us this morning. I hope you have a great holiday season.